Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something big. We're looking at the incredibly complex yet vital landscape of social challenges in 21st century India.
It's a huge topic.
It is. And our mission, like always, is to cut through all the noise, pull out the key insights from the source material you've shared, and help you get properly informed on these critical issues. Without feeling totally overwhelmed. We're covering a lot from, well, the challenges of an aging population, the complexities around employment, the really tragic situation with farmer suicides, the hidden struggles of domestic violence, and the grip of various addictions, too.
And what's so striking right from the start is how interconnected a lot of these issues are. They might seem separate, but they're often linked.
That's a great point.
Understanding these problems isn't just academic. It's crucial for any informed citizen because these things shape daily life for millions. They really shape the future of the nation.
Absolutely. And that leads perfectly into something foundational the sources bring up right away. Before we dive into specifics, they make this really key distinction between an individual problem and a social problem. Let's start with the individual side.
Okay.
An individual problem, basically, is something experienced by one person. Let's take loneliness as an example.
Good example.
The cause could be internal, right? Maybe personality, maybe just lethargy.
Yeah.
Or it could be external, maybe no job opportunities that fit, or like conventional mindsets in a community that kind of isolate you.
Right, external pressures.
Exactly. And while the person has to make an effort, they often need support. Family, friends, maybe professionals.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, knowing that difference is really key. It tells us where collective action is actually needed.
How so?
Well, a social problem, that's different. It's defined by a whole lot of people as a deviation from social norms they cherish.
Yeah.
Something that seriously threatens society or holds back the aspirations of many.
Okay, so it's widespread.
It's widespread. And crucially, people feel the need for collective social action to fix it. It's not just one person's struggle anymore. It needs an organized societal response.
Got it. So what does this mean for you listening as we look at these bigger challenges? It's that fundamental split, individual effort versus the need for a collective societal response when something becomes a widespread issue.
Precisely.
So with that distinction clear, the sources immediately jump into a topic that, well, it affects everyone eventually. The massive shifts happening as India's population gets older.
Yeah, aging. It's universal.
Whether it's us personally or caring for family, it's something we all encounter.
Indeed. And the sources define aging very clearly. It's an inevitable and irreversible biological process of life. Universal, progressive, intrinsic, and, well, degenerative.
Degenerative, right.
And in India, the census specifically defines the aging population as 60 years and older. And that group is growing continuously.
Yeah.
Higher longevity, lower mortality rates. It's a real demographic shift.
A revolution, you could say. And the problems facing this growing group are incredibly varied. Let's try and unpack some of them based on the sources.
Okay.
First, there are major health concerns, not just the physical decline, dental, bones, heart, hearing, vision, but also really significant mental health issues. Things like alienation, anxiety, loneliness, dissatisfaction, depression.
It's a double whammy, physical and mental.
Totally. And loneliness itself is a huge psychological issue, often rooted in real life stuff, being single, childless, isolated, or maybe losing a spouse. And the sources mention some really disturbing cases of neglect or even abandonment.
Yeah, that's tough to read. And it's layered, too. Beyond just neglect, there's actual abuse, cruelty, mockery, harassment, even physical violence, often tied to, tragically, greed over family property.
Awful.
Then there's profound economic insecurity. Many elders depend on their families, especially sons, in a still largely patriarchal setup. And a huge number simply don't have a pension.
No safety net.
Pretty much. Add to that a pervasive lack of empathy. Younger generations, even caregivers, sometimes just don't get the specific needs of older people. Sometimes they even use coercive methods.
Coercive, wow.
Yeah. And the mental health issues you mentioned, anxiety, depression, guilt, feeling like a burden, they're made so much worse by the slow change in social stigma around getting help. People are still hesitant.
It sounds like a perfect storm of challenges. And then there's the absence of adequate healthcare, a real lack of access or facilities for serious conditions like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or even just good mental health care.
Definitely a gap.
And the lack of old age homes. The sources say they're woefully inadequate in number, often too expensive, lack basic amenities, or the care is just impersonal.
Right. Not a real solution for many.
And we can't forget the weaker sections: elderly women, LGBT persons, disabled elders. They face specific, often compounded challenges that get overlooked.
Very true.
And finally, exploitation. Just being more vulnerable when you depend on others for basic things like hygiene or signing papers.
It's a lot. So this brings us to the crucial question. What collective actions are actually working, or what's needed to tackle all this?
What do the sources say?
Well, they point to a multi-pronged approach. The role of government is key, naturally. The Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment has the National Policy on Older Persons, the NPOP from '99, aiming to support care, shelters, healthcare.
Okay, policies there.
Then NGOs like HelpAge India, Harmony India, they play a huge role on the ground, real boots on the ground work.
Practical help.
Exactly. And education is important too. In schools, through things like community service projects, NSS, building awareness and sensitivity towards elders from a young age.
Starting early. Makes sense.
And crucially, the role of family, creating respectful, enriching homes, valuing the wisdom elders have, which often gets dismissed these days.
It really makes you think about your own experiences, maybe with older family members, and just how much more societal support is needed. If you had to pick just one critical intervention the sources emphasize, what would it be?
That's tough. They're all linked.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose one theme that comes up repeatedly in the sources, it's probably the lack of adequate healthcare infrastructure and access.
Self-care.
Yeah, both physical and mental. Without tackling those fundamental needs, a lot of the other problems just cascade. It feels like a foundational crack.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's pivot now. Let's talk about a challenge whose scale is just, well, staggering. Unemployment. The sources hit us with some stark numbers right away. Get this. For about 4,400 government job openings, 14.6 lakh applicants.
Wow.
That's 1.46 million people applying for just over 4,000 jobs. I mean, let's unpack that. It just paints such a vivid picture of the scale here.
It really does. And when we talk unemployment, we generally mean people aged 15-59, jobless, actively looking, and available for work.
Right.
The Periodic Labor Force Survey, the PLFS from NSSO back in FY 2018, showed overall unemployment at 6.1%.
Right.
But it also defines someone unemployed as putting in less than 14 hours of paid work a week.
Which hints at underemployment, right? People working, but not enough, or not at their skill level.
Exactly. That's a huge hidden part of the problem.
So what's driving this? The sources point to several key things. First, inadequate skills. A big mismatch between what people know and what industry needs.
The skill gap.
Yeah. Plus, tech advancements making old skills redundant, like manual typing versus online exams. Simple example, but it illustrates it.
Sure.
Then there are frequent shifts in jobs. Temporary unemployment between gigs, seasonal work, like farmers moving to cities after the monsoon.
Frictional and seasonal unemployment.
Right. The changing economy itself booms and busts, like in construction.
Yeah.
That causes instability. And seasonal shifts aren't just agriculture. Banking, shipping have them too.
True.
And finally, a major one, the gap in demand and supply. Just way more qualified people than jobs available. Plus, this tendency for educated youth to aim only for white-collar jobs.
Yeah, that aspiration factor is real.
Yeah.
And the consequences of all this, they're profound. It goes way beyond the individual. Well, first, unutilized human resources. A whole chunk of your productive population isn't contributing economically. That leads to educational stagnation. You invest in education, but the output isn't employable, or the skills are wrong.
Wasted investment, in a way.
In a way, yes. Then there's underemployment, which we mentioned the PhD holder working as a clerk. That's frustrating and inefficient.
Definitely.
Critically, high unemployment can lead to increased antisocial activities. People get desperate, frustrated. And the impact on mental health is huge: frustration, depression, even suicidal thoughts.
Terrible.
And all this obviously has a really adverse impact on national development. The youth are the future, right? If they're unemployed, the whole country suffers.
So, faced with all that, what measures are being taken? What do the sources suggest?
There's a focus on educational change, revamping curricula to be choice-based, need-based, learner-centered, making it relevant to local industry, community needs.
Making education more practical.
Exactly. And huge emphasis on skill development, building actual employment-worthy skills, fostering entrepreneurship. Initiatives like RUSA, Rashtriya Uchatar, Shiksha Abhan aim at this.
RUSA.
Vocational training is getting a big push too, highlighted in the National Education Policy 2020.
NEP 2020.
There's also a call for better industry education symbiosis, more collaboration, especially in STEM fields, science, tech, engineering, math.
Bridging that gap.
Yep. And finally, really encouraging entrepreneurship and self-employment. The government's boosting startups, think OLA, Flipkart, Zomato, and their schemes like MGNRGS, PMKVY, Startup India, trying to support this.
It makes you think about education in your own life, doesn't it? That pressure for a good job sometimes feels disconnected from what the actual market needs. It really highlights that gap the sources mentioned.
It does. The gap between skills taught and skills genuinely required is a recurring theme.
Okay, now we need to turn to something really heavy. A grave social problem. The tragic reality of farmer suicides in India.
Yes, a deeply concerning issue, rooted in India's agrarian society.
What are the underlying causes here? It seems so complex.
It is incredibly complex, and the causes are often tangled together. First, the sources point strongly to the impact of environmental deterioration.
Climate change.
Yes, but also deforestation, overexploiting resources, pollution, all leading to devastating floods and droughts that just wipe out crops and livelihoods.
So unpredictable now.
Exactly. Then there's the impact of globalization, marketization, consumerism, free trade policies, sometimes resulting in cheaper foreign produce flooding the market, which hits local prices hard. Farmers can't compete.
Undercutting them.
Right. And a massive factor is indebtedness. Farmers take loans, government, private moneylenders, but if the crop fails, they can't repay.
The debt trap.
Precisely. It's worsened by things like expensive seeds, say BT cotton, that need really good irrigation, which isn't always there. So the crop fails and they're bankrupt. The psychological weight of that debt is immense.
I can only imagine.
There's also simple ignorance, sometimes lack of awareness about newer, maybe more resilient farming methods or technologies. And the disparity of land holdings means small and medium farmers have way less security than big landowners.
Unequal footing.
Very unequal. And finally, something quite specific the sources mention: the dowry system. Tragically, loans taken for farming needs sometimes get diverted to pay dowry demands. This adds hugely to the debt burden, especially noted in areas like Vidarbha and Marathwada.
That's a connection I wouldn't have immediately made. So with climate and market pressures being so huge, how big a factor is dowry really? Is it a main driver or more like the straw that breaks the camel's back?
That's a really sharp question.
Yeah.
Look, climate and market forces are massive systemic issues, no doubt. But the sources suggest that for many families, especially in those regions mentioned, Vidarbha, for instance, the dowry burden can absolutely be the final straw.
A tipping point.
Exactly. It pulls away vital capital, forces families into taking informal, high-interest loans, adds this immense psychological pressure. It turns a very difficult situation into a truly desperate one.
Devastating. And the consequences of these suicides, they must ripple outwards.
They do, massively. There's the immediate impact on the farmers' families, terrible economic and emotional trauma. Wives and children left without support.
Yeah.
The impact on the spouse often means the wife is suddenly the sole breadwinner, usually with no prior experience or skills, often forced into hard physical labor.
Just thrown into it.
Completely.
Yeah, really?
And the impact on children, they take on responsibilities way too early, often have to drop out of school, and carry deep psychological scars.
Long-term effects.
Definitely. On a bigger scale, there's an impact on the economy. It discourages young people from farming, fuels urban migration, and, long-term, harms national food security.
Right. Who will farm?
And finally, the impact on the social environment in the village. It creates this atmosphere of despair, helplessness, fear, guilt, shame. It affects the whole community fabric.
So this raises the critical question: what concrete measures are being discussed or implemented to support this absolutely vital sector and try to stop this tragedy?
The sources outline several key strategies. First, establishing support systems for farmers in distress is crucial immediate help.
Crisis support.
Yes. Comprehensive life and crop insurance against failures is vital. Also, making provision for direct sales from farmers to buyers, cutting out the middlemen who often take huge cuts.
Fairer prices.
Hopefully. Water harvesting and management techniques are essential given the climate uncertainty. The role of banks is critical too. Need farmer-friendly loan processes, encouraging savings to avoid those predatory private lenders.
Making finance accessible and fair.
Exactly. And finally, promoting multi-cropping instead of relying on just one crop. If the government supports this with training, subsidized inputs, it can build resilience.
More diverse income streams.
Potentially, yes. Adds a buffer.
It really underscores the human cost here and just how urgent these systemic problems are, especially for a nation still so reliant on agriculture. Okay, let's transition now. We're moving to domestic violence. Acknowledging this is deeply personal, but also a pervasive social problem, and one that often stays hidden, right? Because it's seen as a personal matter or even normal in some contexts.
That's sadly true. Domestic violence, as the sources define it, is abuse within the family, and it's broad psychological, emotional, verbal, physical torture.
Not just physical.
Not at all. And it's important to note, it cuts across ages, sexes, genders. Victims can be women, children, the elderly, transgender persons. While women are disproportionately affected, it's not exclusively a gendered issue in terms of who can be a victim.
That's an important clarification. What do the sources say are the underlying causes?
Several factors come up strongly. First, patriarchy, this huge power imbalance where male authority is just accepted and women, transgender persons, children have lower status. It creates the environment for abuse.
Power dynamics.
Absolutely central. Then, insecurity of a partner, often mentioned in relation to men, leading to suspicion, ego threats, accusations of infidelity, which can then trigger abuse. Often, yes. Dysfunctional relationships themselves stemming from personal insecurities, maybe big age or cultural gaps. Incompatibility can also spark abuse. Snide remarks escalating to bickering, even physical assault.
It can escalate quickly.
It can. And it goes deeper culturally, too. Traditional and religious outlooks sometimes normalize male supremacy, even violence within the home. It gets passed down through gender socialization.
Learned behavior.
Very much so. Then there's heteronormativity, this social expectation that everyone fits neatly into male-female gender roles and is heterosexual. This discourages anyone who doesn't conform and can lead to discrimination, even abuse, against gender-variant individuals within their own families.
So nonconformity is punished.
Sadly, yes, in some contexts. And finally, simple vulnerability. Economic dependence, lack of power.
Yeah.
This makes youth, women, disabled people, the elderly, more susceptible to ongoing exploitation and abuse.
You mentioned abuse linked to property with the elderly, and here we see these deeply ingrained cultural norms again. How deep does this run? Is it getting worse or just more visible? And out of all these causes, is there one the sources pinpoint as particularly stubborn, really hard to change because it's so embedded?
That's a really insightful question. Gathering data is hard because of underreporting, right? But the sources suggest that alongside things like economic stress and changing family structures, a lack of awareness about rights, combined with that deep cultural tolerance for certain behaviors, is creating new vulnerabilities. It's not just about overt violence, but what society quietly accepts.
The normalization of it.
Exactly. And to your second point, yes, the patriarchal mindset is probably the most fundamental and toughest cause to dismantle because it's woven into so many social institutions, often reinforced by those traditional and religious views we mentioned. It's incredibly persistent.
And the consequences of this violence, they must be severe.
They are. Huge psychological trauma, often needing intensive counseling, leading to unfulfilled lives, loss of hope, cynicism, deep distrust.
Scars that last.
Definitely. Also, psychosomatic health disorders. Things like bedwetting in children, depression in the elderly, stemming directly from that psychological stress.
Naughty reacting to the mind.
Precisely. And tragically, it can lead to the perpetuation of abuse. Children who witness violence might grow up thinking it's normal and sadly repeat the cycle themselves.
Breaking the cycle is key.
Absolutely. And finally, just a decline in individual productivity. People who are physically or emotionally unwell due to abuse simply can't reach their full potential.
So what's being done? What measures are needed to tackle domestic violence effectively?
The sources stress creating awareness, really challenging that personal matter idea, promoting a rational outlook based on equality, social justice, making it clear it's not okay.
Changing norms.
Yes. Then personal empowerment for those who are vulnerable, often through things like self-help groups, SHGs, and NGOs, giving them support and resources.
Building strength from within.
Exactly. The role of media is crucial. Sensitizing the public, fighting ignorance, sharing stories of hope, showing people where they can get help.
Positive messaging.
And NGOs are vital on the ground, providing direct support, often backed up with legal aid and police liaison. The rule of law itself is obviously important legal protections, constitutional rights, like the reading down of Section 377 of the Penal Code.
Decriminalizing homosexuality.
Yes, a landmark step for LGBT rights and empowerment, recognizing individual rights within the law. And finally, the role of police, ensuring law enforcement is sensitive, trained to handle these cases properly. Campaigns like Bell Baja Andalan try to encourage bystander intervention, changing that mindset of non-interference.
Ring the bell campaign, right?
Take the one.
It really makes you reflect on how deep these societal norms go and how much effort it takes to shift them. A multifaceted approach is clearly needed.
Absolutely. No single solution.
Okay, let's turn to our final social problem for this deep dive: addiction. And what's really interesting here is how the sources broaden the definition. It's not just substances anymore. It includes modern things like internet and mobile addiction.
That's a crucial point. Addiction fundamentally is defined as psychological and/or physical dependence on something, a substance, an object, even an activity,
Dependence.
leading to craving, uncontrolled emotions, anger, violence, depression if it's not available, and it damages the individual and society.
So let's break down the types the sources mention. First, the more traditional substance addiction.
Right. Physical, biological dependence on chemicals, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, tobacco, gutka. Withdrawal symptoms are a key feature, and the problems are huge: health, family, work, legal issues.
Can you give some specifics from the sources?
Sure. Tobacco addictive nicotine causes mouth, throat, lung cancer. Alarming stats on kids. Estimated 20 million children aged 10-14 addicted.
20 million kids. That's shocking.
It is. Alcohol with ethanol is a depressant. Whitener fluid, containing trichloroethane, is apparently rising among teens. Gutka, with areca nut, is a known carcinogen. And narcotics, cannabis, heroin, even diverted codeine cough syrups are widely abused, often linked to changing values, stress, weaker support systems.
So it's widespread. Are there laws?
Yes, like the 2008 anti-smoking law banning it in public places, setting a minimum age of 18 for buying tobacco or working in the industry.
Yeah.
But enforcement is always a challenge.
True. But as you said, it's not just substances now.
No. The sources highlight internet addiction, this compelling need to constantly be online, but not for work. We're talking gaming, adult sites, pornography, social media.
Why is that problematic? Everyone's online.
It becomes problematic when it's compulsive and has negative consequences. Increased stress, anxiety, putting stress on others, physical health effects from inactivity, neglecting personal responsibilities, damaged real-world relationships, exposure to harmful or false information.
Okay, I see the line. And mobile addiction.
Similar vein. Mobile addiction. The obsessive need for the latest phone, maybe as a status symbol. Constant connectivity, social media fixation, gaming.
What are the signs?
Problematic behaviors include constantly being on call, taking endless selfies, posting everything immediately on social media, obsessively monitoring others online, mindlessly forwarding messages and rumors, constantly checking for likes.
Checking for likes. That sounds familiar for many.
It does. And the impact is much like internet addiction,
Yeah.
but also specific things like injuries or deaths from texting while driving or taking dangerous selfies. Real anxiety if the phone is lost or has no signal. It takes a toll, mentally and physically.
What surprised you most in the sources about how common these non-substance addictions are, especially among younger people? It feels like something that's crept up on society.
It really does feel that way. What stands out is the sheer speed these digital addictions have taken hold. And often, as the sources suggest, they're tapping into a very basic human need. Validation of the self.
Validate.
Yeah. Social media likes, comments, they create this addictive feedback loop. The sources even mention selfitis, the obsessive taking of selfies, being considered by some as a potential mental disorder.
Wow.
And this connects to common causes across many addictions. You see these recurring human patterns. Personal factors maybe develop slowly. Peer pressure is huge, especially for young people wanting to fit in.
Social belonging.
Exactly. Sometimes it's about perceived social status, flaunting trendy things, whether it's drugs or the latest gadget. Then there are deeper psychological factors, maybe feelings of inferiority or superiority, insecurity, fear, frustration, loneliness driving the behavior, and finally, inadequate role models. If role models exhibit disruptive or addictive traits, youth might imitate them.
A complex mix of internal and external pressures.
Yeah.
And the consequences, they must touch everything.
You really do. Direct psychological effect on the individual. Dependency, obsession with validation, loss of control, a huge impact on family, threatened stability, can lead to domestic violence, breakdown in communication, people feeling unloved or neglected.
Family breakdown.
Significant impact on health. Detrimental physically, mentally, emotionally. More stress, anxiety, aggression, clear impact on work. Commitment drops. Efficiency suffers. Focus is lost. Absenteeism increases.
Productivity plummets.
Right. There's a big economic impact. draining money on substances, phone bills, internet costs, maybe treatment, and sometimes it links to crime, like drug peddling to fund a habit. And finally, often isolation. Addicts tend to withdraw, avoid social interaction, become detached from the real world.
Turning inwards.
Exactly.
So this raises that important question again. What practical systemic steps can tackle such a widespread problem? It can't just be about individual willpower, can it? Especially with societal pressures.
No, willpower alone is rarely enough when addiction takes hold. The sources emphasize a broader approach.
So beyond willpower, how do the sources suggest we tackle the societal drivers, especially for these digital addictions?
It's crucial because the environment plays a huge role. Measures include broad awareness campaigns, using education, self-assessment tools to help people recognize the signs.
Education is key.
Yes. Counseling and professional help are vital. De-addiction clinics, like the Jivan Jyoti Vyasamukti Kendra mentioned in Nagpur, offer structured programs, support groups. That infrastructure is essential.
Formal treatment.
Right. Laws can act as deterrents, especially against drug peddlers or regulating harmful online content, though enforcement is always the challenge. Mass media has a huge role in raising awareness, promoting healthier lifestyles and alternatives.
Using media positively.
Exactly. Voluntary organizations like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous provide invaluable peer support. That shared experience is powerful.
Community support.
Definitely. And critically, promoting positive group activities, hobbies, sports, community involvement. These build real-world connections and positive experiences, offering an alternative path for people who might otherwise become isolated and vulnerable to addiction.
Filling the void, perhaps.
In a sense, yes. And for digital addiction specifically, it's about fostering digital literacy, promoting healthier online habits, maybe critical thinking about social media's effects, and providing offline alternatives that fulfill those underlying needs for connection and validation in more constructive ways.
It certainly prompts you to think about your own relationship with tech, maybe substances too. These devices are everywhere. We're all kind of navigating this landscape of potential dependency now.
We really are. It requires conscious effort.
So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening? We've covered a lot: aging, unemployment, farmer suicides, domestic violence, addiction. Across all these diverse problems, we see profound impacts on individuals, on families, on the nation. And that recurring theme just keeps coming back: the absolute need for collective social action.
Exactly. What becomes so clear from the sources is that while each problem is distinct, they all highlight how society's challenges are constantly evolving, and they underscore our collective responsibility. This knowledge is valuable, but really only when it's understood and applied. The sources really drive home the interconnectedness and the urgency here, often showing surprising links between issues you might not expect.
Absolutely. So considering how pervasive all these challenges are and that constant emphasis on collective social action, here's a final thought for you to take away. What specific role do you see for individual citizens? How can each of us foster a society that actively addresses these complex social problems, going beyond just relying on the government or NGOs?
Good question.
Think about specific everyday actions. What can contribute to that collective response? Something to mull over until our next deep dive.